Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian, and today we're going to kind of go over the new coaching hire at Michigan, Mr. Kyle Whittingham, formerly of Utah for 21 years or so. Just kind of go over his staff and who he is and what his philosophy seemed to have been over the past couple of years, and yeah, kind of discuss that. So, right off the start, we're going to talk about him himself. Kyle Whittingham kind of took over for Urban Meyer after Urban Meyer left Utah to go to, I believe it was Florida and on to places like Ohio State and the Jaguars, the NFL. But Whittingham took over and he kind of kept a program that had been revived under Urban Meyer, and then he pushed it even farther. He had multiple Rose Bowl appearances, numerous finishes in the top 15, 25 range. Did a lot of really good things at Utah. He presided over a number of excellent players, pushed a lot of players to the NFL over his tenure there. He had people like Cam Rising, who was a excellent quarterback. Unfortunately, injuries kind of derailed his career, but he was an excellent quarterback. They posed upsets over a variety of teams over the years, including Alabama, among others. So he knows how to coach. That is the important part. But most importantly, I think for Michigan right now, is that he is not someone who is attached to any scandals per se. Uh, to the best of my knowledge, like I believe somebody did some background digging on him, and he follows like 3 people on Instagram. I think his wife and 2 kids, something like that. So that is what Michigan needs right now, somebody who is low visibility on social media in terms of saying and being all out there, and high visibility in terms of being a football coach. So Michigan definitely needs someone like that. He's a little older gentleman, so Michigan may not get, 20 years out of him per se, but they don't need that. They need somebody who get stability to the program, and he has a deep respect for schools with resources and tradition, so I think that that'll really help. Um, so there's obviously he's bringing with him his own not all, but a lot of new staff. Some of them he'll be keeping on. I'll talk about that in a second here, but he is bringing in now. Mind you, this is as of today, so if something else comes after the fact, then of course that'll be news for that point in time. But he is bringing a new offensive coordinator. It'll be Jason Beck. He was Whittingham's coordinator at Utah, so they're familiar with each other. They understand each other. There is no uh, magic in that, that is missing there. Those two have it. Um, Beck has been around for a couple of years now. Uh, says here he worked at an offensive coordinator in New Mexico and Syracuse, and a couple of years ago, Syracuse had a fairly good offense. So this guy has something going for him. And apparently Whittingham has placed a lot of value in his input over the years. Since they were together at least. So it's not exactly two people who don't know each other, which is important for continuity's sake. So, um, of course, Beck is probably happy to be going to a program with Michigan's kind of prestige, shall we call it, and he has the possibility of coaching basically a guy who was just went through his freshman year in Bryce Underwood. I'd be excited too if I was to coach somebody with that kind of talent and abilities. So hopefully those two can, Bryce Underwood stays and Michigan is able to develop him and give him a chance to show that, that he can live up to the hype that he came to school with. They got a new defensive coordinator. I believe, yes, BYU's defensive coordinator, Jay Hill, will be replacing Wink Martindale. Martindale had some really good defenses, but it's time for him to move on, and they brought in a guy who took BYU from being a poor defensive school to a above average to excellent. BYU has had some teams that have some really solid defenses, so it's good that they brought in somebody with experience. Excuse me, who's got you know experience elevating whole entire defense, not individual players, but whole defenses. And Michigan has those players available. So hopefully that is what happens. Um, He's a sharp dude. BYU, while they've had some struggles against quote unquote upper tier teams, that you question whether that is the talent he has or his schemes. We will find out, and there may be some struggles at first, but if those if it's simply a talent problem, Michigan has that ready and waiting. So hopefully he can take that talent and they'll elevate it. Michigan has a new QB coach, Coy Detmer Jr. That'll be a QB coach. Uh, that is something Michigan did not have prior to under Sean Moore. They didn't have a dedicated quarterback coach, and that really, I almost feel like that was doing Bryce Underwood a disservice. I really do think it was. I think that's part of the problem why he didn't develop perhaps the way that we had hoped as Michigan fans over the year. So he's Coy Detmer has experience. He comes from an NFL family. Uh, his dad was a NFL quarterback, so he has all this experience, and apparently he has worked with Jason Beck at a number of different stops prior. So once again, continuity is a big deal. He'll be tasked with developing Underwood, and hopefully he's up for that. And Underwood, if those two can mesh, Underwood could be seriously a dangerous quarterback coming up. Um, Michigan's running back coach will remain Tony Alford, which is a huge get for Michigan to keep him, retain his services, because Justice Haynes, while could who he could go to the NFL, Justice Haynes is absolutely an amazing running back, and if he stays, Michigan will have at least one, if not two, reliable running backs at the roster yet, with Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall. Now they're also set to welcome Savion Hitler, holy smokes, I got that wrong. Savion Hitter. That's embarrassing. Savion Hitter, a five-star prospect at his position for the year. I thank goodness this channel's not that big, or that would end up going viral. Um, he's one of the top recruits at the position, an amazing running back. So they're going to have Justice Haynes, Jordan Marshall. They have Kuzal as a third, but I imagine Hyder will probably take his spot in camp, given his prospect position and his apparent abilities on the field. So hopefully that is hopefully that is the case. And Michigan has somebody who can take over next year once Marshall and Haynes, or at least Haynes, moves on. So I think Haynes may go to the NFL this year, and then it'd be Marshall and Hyder, Savion Hyder, but we'll see. See what happens there. Michigan is getting two new wide receivers coaches, Micah Simon and Marquise Haggins. Um, Haggins will likely be an analyst, but still, obviously, if they've worked together before, odds of them kind of working together is pretty high as well. They're replacing Rod Bellamy, who's, for those of you who are a little older, like I guess myself technically, we watched Rod Bellamy play at Michigan back in the 90s. I believe it was the 90s or early 2000s. I can't remember, but he did. So they're replacing a former Michigan player at that position. Simon works with Beck at New Mexico and Utah, and Haggins was at Penn State, but also has experience at Virginia. So these guys have experience. These are not new guys, so that's a big deal. They're going to be rebuilding the receiving room. McCauley is going to the NFL, understandably so. Big dude, really showed out this year. Had a decent season, not great, but really good. And then Morgan is transferring, so uh, Michigan will basically be looking at Andrew Marsh as a top kind of target being developed, and hopefully some others will come up under him, because Michigan has talent there. Uh, Michigan is supposed to hire Kyle Whittingham's brother, Freddie, as the tight ends coach. He's been um, he's been there with, if I remember correctly, he was with Utah. Yeah, he was with his brother at Utah for the past 13 years. I was looking for a time frame. Uh, 10 of those as tight ends coach. So he has experience. He's worked with his brother a lot. So this is not a bad hire. If you wanna associate a name with his brother, Dalton Kincaid, who plays for, I believe, the Bills. He was coached by, Freddie Whittingham, so there is a name there, there is a face there, like, this is a guy who knows what he's doing, and these are players, legitimate players that have been developed by him who went on to the NFL. So that's encouraging. So, um, Michigan is apparently Michigan dismissed Steve Kasula, who was the former tight end coach for Michigan. Not sure if he's staying on or not, but I would imagine that that will not be the case, but we'll see. Michigan's is hiring Jim Harding as the offensive line coach. He was also at Utah for looks like 12 years under Whittingham, so that's going to be interesting to see what he does. Michigan has had an exceptionally good line of for the better part of the last couple of years. Some ups and downs, but they were not bad this year, but they're also not great. So we'll see. He is an Ohio native, so maybe even that plays into recruiting in Ohio. Could be not, we'll see, but he's also a top coach at that position. So that's gonna be a big get for Michigan, not just for development, but for also recruiting, and offensive linemen are gonna look at Michigan and they're gonna say, "Okay, they have a top coach at that position. He's coached a lot of good people, good players, so maybe that's gonna be kind of an attraction there." Um, Michigan, the former coach was Grant Newsome, which some of you may know was a former Michigan offensive lineman himself, and he is moving on to somewhere else, I believe. But we wish him all the best of luck, of course. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with Michigan's offensive line. Yeah. For those of you wondering, two um two offensive linemen from Michigan entered transfer portal around the time that all this was going on. Jake Guarnera and Andrew Sprague. Sprague probably being the more commonly known name. Michigan has hired. Actually, no, sorry, correction. They retained Louis Esposito, their defensive tackles coach. He's been there for I think a couple of years now. Uh, he's a strong recruiter in the Michigan area, so that's gonna really help them. Um, and he was part of the group from I believe he's at West Michigan prior to this, and that would have been the group that had Marshawn Nealand and Braden Fisk and a couple other players. So that's good good keep for Michigan to hold on to guys like that who has a track record of success. Their defensive and they also hired another defensive end coach, Lewis Powell from Utah, who's coming over with Whittingham. He's been there for a while, I believe. So yeah, he's I don't know much about him to be honest, but if Kyle Whittingham is vouching for him, chances are he has something going for him. So let's hope that to be the case. Linebackers coach will actually be Kyle Whittingham's son, Alex Whittingham. He was with the Chiefs for 8 years and a assistant defensive line coach, so he has experience at the highest level currently, and, yeah, that's in terms of attraction for NFL potential, that is somebody who can develop players and get them to that position possibly. Now, that may not do much for their recruiting per se, but they have other people in place like Alford and such on to help with that, so I get the feeling that's why, it's not why he was hired was for that. I think it was mostly for his experience, so which makes sense. Um, Gennaro Guilford is Michigan's new defensive backs coach. He was a defensive passing game coordinator and quarterback coach at BYU in 2025. So once again, another BYU connection, a lot of experience there. So according to this, he helped the Cougars have 12 different players record interceptions, which is a lot of players recording a lot of interceptions. So 29 total turnovers in which tied for three nationally. That's good. That's a very high number. Michigan could use turnovers in a big way. So that's a big deal. Um, they have a new special teams coach. They actually hired Kerry Combs a couple days before Sean Moore was fired, which is kind of a interesting thing to do, but who knows, nobody really knows the timeline of what everybody knew what and how that all went down. Um, Apparently, he has not signed his full employment agreement yet, but he's got a memorandum of understanding. So odds are he'll be coming on staff shortly. So also, Combs is known as a recruiter in Ohio too, apparently. So that's going to be a big deal. It gives Michigan another pipeline to a state that has produced some pretty good prospects over the years. Strength staff. Apparently, Whittingham is bringing over Doug Elisaya. Sorry if I butchered that name. He'll be following Whittingham to Michigan. He's a strength and conditioning program. That is definitely something Michigan needs. They have lost some really good and excellent coaches in that program over the years from that specific area. So it'd be good to have somebody back in there who knows what's doing, knows what they're doing, has a lot of experience in that. So that's a big deal. Um, yeah, that seems to be the most of the major ones. Um, Overall, I think the Whittingham hire is excellent. I think Michigan needs stability, maturity, and a culture change. And they need somebody who's not gonna, get out there and do anything crazy. This is a family man who understands what is being asked of him. So, yeah, I think it's a big deal. I think it's an excellent hire. Is it the flashiest? No. But Cal Whittingham is not the flashiest person. He's a person who's a coach and he knows how to win. And he doesn't take losing as the end of the world. And he's not emotional to the point of irrationality, which is what Michigan needs right now. They need somebody who's logical, who handles football as what it is. A football, it's a game. People play, people win or people lose, and it's how you handle both of those that counts and who can handle that in a mature way, and that's what Cal Whittingham brings. So, yeah, that's kind of it. The people who's Whittingham's bringing in, that's who he is, and yeah, it's really interesting to see with the portal opening up in like the next day, either tomorrow or day after. It's gonna be really interesting to see what happens there, and I really hope that this was the hire that kind of sets Michigan back on the path to a more prestigious continuation because there was a lot of stuff that happened, unfortunately, under Ward Emanuel, who's still there, and that's a Ward Emanuel, sorry, who's his future. I don't know if that's in question or not, but hopefully Whittingham can bring them back to a little bit more the straight and narrow per se. So maybe he can run a bit of a tighter ship than Moore and Harbaugh did. So that's what we're hoping for as Michigan fans. And I think when Michigan is good, I think the whole Big Ten gets better. Hopefully, not all the time, but that's kind of what we're hoping for. So I hope everybody's having a great new year. I know it's only the third, but hopefully, your whatever resolutions you have are staying. You're staying on track, and hope everybody's having a blessed day and a great weekend. And thanks for watching. Peace.